I went to Mind Body Spirit and I had a really bad reading. If you're wondering why I'm sitting here all rugged up, it is absolutely freezing here in Melbourne, and I find if I have a bit of a scarf on, my house is super, super cold, and we are finally going to be doing something about it in the next few weeks. So I might be sitting talking to you in all manner of ways as time goes on, because we're going to literally pull our house apart to fix it in the interior. But suffice to say, I'm freezing and I've got my scarf on. I did have a jacket on. I took that off because I thought, if I'm going to talk to you, like, I don't want to be sitting here like I'm in the Arctic. Anyway, I went to Mind Body Spirit and I had a really, really bad reading. I didn't go into, for those of you in Australia who know what Mind Body Spirit is, you'll know that there is the reading room where all the readers are and they read all day, one after the other after the other. And then there's booths. And I went into a booth, and I'm not going to say which booth it was. And yes, anyway, I want to talk to you today about why I think it was a bad reading and what I think could have happened differently to transform that reading from being a bad reading into being a good reading. If you're new here and you're wondering who I am, my name is Elizabeth, and this is my channel, Connect with Your Deck. And on this channel, we talk about building spiritual confidence so you can listen to your intuition and read your tarot cards with ease. And on this channel, we have a mixture of education videos where I talk about the cards and videos where I talk about my own personal experience with psychic reading and tarot. So today I wanted to talk about this reading. So I went to Mind Body Spirit, and generally when I go to Mind Body Spirit, I have my aura photo taken, and oh, I love having that done. I actually went to Byron Bay, and just to digress for a moment, and I was walking around Byron Bay and I had a lady come up to me and she said, and this was when I was first realizing that I had psychic abilities, and she said, "Your aura, it's yellow, you should be teaching." And at the time I was working for Relationships Australia, and I was working with women in family violence. And the majority of my work was doing the assessments, seeing these women on their own, and doing the training sessions and all of that. So that was, that really resounded with me. And of course I walked into Mind Body Spirit, had my aura photo taken, and guess what color it was? Bright yellow. Like, it was really amazing. So I haven't been for a while because of COVID. So it was really exciting to go and have that done. And of course it came out deep purple. And I might do a video and actually show you all my aura photos. I love having it done. And I really believe in it. I think it's true. They've tested the machine, and they know that people who can read auras have actually read people's auras, and then they've taken the photo and they've been able to verify that the machine actually does capture that energy. So I had that done, and then I was walking around and I felt the energy of someone in one of the booths, and I thought, I'll have a reading. Now, when I sit down to have a reading, I get so excited because I think, oh, someone else is going to see me and see my energy differently and maybe give me some guidance and that kind of thing. And I'm always careful. I try not to tell what I do as a job, because I've discovered that when people say, "Oh, what do you do as a job?" and I say, "Oh, I teach the tarot," they go, and they freeze and they can't read for me. And I think, no, I don't want to put my energy on somebody else. And make them feel uncomfortable and all of that. So I tend to just say, oh, I have a lifestyle channel or something like that. But when I sat down, the reading, I don't know. I didn't know what I was doing. I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. I sat down and they had, the reader had piles of cards in front of them. And straight away, he didn't do what I expected him to do with the cards, which immediately sort of made me feel a bit like I didn't know what was happening. And I'm not one of these people that goes into a reading and says, "You tell me what, you're the psychic." I'm very receptive because I think I want to be open to being read. I want the person to be able to see me and give me some insight about things that maybe I hadn't thought about before. I don't even need a future prediction. I just want some, I don't know, someone to look at me from a different perspective, perhaps. Anyway, I sat down and immediately I felt like, what's going on? And what ended up happening in the reading was, I was thinking, why was this such a bad reading? Because he actually sensed some things about me. He asked me immediately, what's going on with your house? And we nearly bought a property. We nearly left where I'm living now and bought a property. And if you'd like me to do some videos of my office before and after and some bits and pieces of my house and talk about what we're doing, I'm more than happy to do that. And I'm starting to think maybe I might start a lifestyle channel and put them all there. If you'd like that, put a comment down below and let me know that interests you. But anyway, so I think what happened was this reader didn't have a repertoire. Like, he had talent, clearly, and he could see things. Like, he was definitely tuning in with me, but he didn't have a repertoire to lean on. And I think what he did was he made himself anxious because he was relying too much on his intuition. And when you put yourself under pressure as a psychic, it makes it really, really difficult for you. That's what the cards are for. They're there as a tool to help you. So, you know, he sort of got me to hold the cards, and then he held the cards at the same time I was holding them, and that's fine. And then he pulled one card, which was an oracle card, and the card that came out was thankfulness, and he just said to me, oh no, I don't think that applies to you. So it was he didn't have, the thing though that I think happened that really bothered me, and this is something that I really, really want you to guard against when you're reading. And it was such an example. And when you go and have readings from other people to see how they read, listen for this. He talked too much about himself. So when he got the message, what's going on with your property? I said, oh, look, we were thinking we were going to sell. We nearly bought a house and then we didn't. And we're kind of feeling stuck and we don't know what to do. Like, I gave him a whole lot of information to work with, and he didn't have a repertoire of how he questions to get me to open up. He didn't use his cards as a tool to open that topic up. What he did was he said, oh yes, well, when we bought a house, when we renovated, when we did this with our house, blah, 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 and this happened to me, and that happened to me. Well, I don't want to know about what's going on for you as a reader. And it's a trap because, and it was even a trap, I must say, that I fell into when I was first learning to counsel. Way back when I was a youth worker, I did a counselling course by correspondence. Think about it. A counselling course and back then there was no internet. I had to send my assignments in and then they got sent back, and I had to do a videotape and actually send the videotape in, a little audio tape, and then send it, like they then gave me commentary back. Like, it was crazy stuff, but you do what you've got to do. And this, you know, like, one of the comments they gave me was that I talked too much in the session and that the client needed to say more. And of course, as we all know from going to counsellors, the counsellor sits back and the client speaks. Whereas in a psychic session, the psychic speaks and the client sits back until they're ready to speak. But what happened here was he spoke, and that's fine if he was talking about me, but he was talking about him. And I don't want to sit there, and the reading only went for 20 minutes, and have 15 of those 20 minutes, it would have easily been that much, spent on talking about him, especially when it's cost me, I think it was $70. Like, it wasn't cheap. So, yes, I kind of sat there thinking I was that close to saying something to the person that was managing the booth. Like, that was probably one of the worst readings I've ever had. Thanks very much. Bye. And it was because he talked about him and his life's experience. And as I've said to you many times before, your life's experience is your life's experience, and their life's experience is their life's experience. And so it's really important that if you're going to, I talk about the cards and I talk about understanding the meaning by hooking it up with your own life's experience, but that doesn't mean talking about yourself for the entire reading. That means being really aware of the fact that you need to be reading your client. Now, what can happen when your client sits down is if they have a big energy, and I've got a huge energy. I know that. I fill rooms, like I've been told, Elizabeth, you fill the room, every crevice. There's nowhere to hide. And I know that. And maybe when I sat down, I intimidated him. But you can't afford to let that get on top of you as a reader. And particularly if you're, whether you're in your own booth or you're in the reading room at somewhere like Mind Body Spirit, and you're reading reader after, client after client after client, you need to have a repertoire. And I didn't think, when I think about it as a teacher, I didn't think his repertoire was strong enough. So I sat down and I had no idea what we were doing. So there was no introduction to the session. There was no, okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to talk, you're going to listen. One of the first things I teach everybody to say, and I might do we might even do, we could do a course on this. Maybe when I open up my tutorials, I'm going to be working on that this week. We can talk about it. And so what makes a good reading? And one of the things that makes a really good reading is when your reader sits down, is tell them what's going to happen. And it takes 2 seconds. We're going to use the tarot. I'm going to lay it out in a spread. We're going to look at the cards together. And I'm going to talk. I invite you to listen. When you feel you would like to contribute and say something, please feel free to ask me questions or contribute. But if you don't feel that you want to, don't say anything. And I find when I say that to people, that just that, even that little blurb is enough. You sit and go, oh. And especially if you have a client that sits in front of you and goes, you're the psychic, you tell me, and block themselves off. If you say, that's fine, you speak when you want to, you'll see this calmness. They're like, oh. And then if you've got a repertoire, and at the moment I'm teaching tarot and I'm going to be working towards giving you other tools. One of the other tools that is so helpful to get your client involved in the reading. And why are we doing this? Not to protect ourselves. We're doing it because we want the client to relax and open up so we can relax and open up and help them find what it is that they've come to see you for, because for some reason they've sat down in front of you. And this reader saw it. I had my house front and center, and he felt it and saw it and could not possibly have known. And then he let the door slam in his face because he had no tools. He had to rely. He got a bit anxious. Something came through, and then he didn't have anything to do any tools to do anything with it. And he relied on talking about himself, which is not helpful. So if he'd done a little bit of palmistry, even studying questioning techniques, thinking about how can I ask questions, open questions. So tell me about when you first decided you're going to do something with your house, and let's pull a card. Tell me about, and if you didn't want to do a spread, you could have even done that. Tell me about how your partner, how did that go with buying, looking at the house? Pull a card. See how, rather than talking about themselves, they were inviting me to talk about myself. The tarot says you need to be mindful of. And you can talk about your own experience, but don't overdo it. Don't sit there for 10 minutes waxing lyrical about your life. Yes, I felt the same way when that happened to me. And a solution. And this is what I did. I meditated on it. I read a book. I reached out to my partner, and this is what I said. See the difference? And that didn't come through. I didn't have that I sat there feeling like I knew more than they did, and that's never good. Which I know probably is the case because I worked for 13 years as a psychologist, so there's all that there. But to me, if you're going to charge $70 for a reading, you need a repertoire. So once we've got tarot, once I really feel like I've taught you as much as I can about the tarot in terms of the cards and a nice spread that you can take and maybe some more on reading formats, I want to do some work on palmistry, because palmistry is beautiful. You can hold someone's hands and you can look at their hands, and that makes beautiful energy. And face reading, which I'm absolutely fascinated about and still doing some research on in terms of where it started, what it is, so I can explain it all to you. And then face reading, you can look at someone's face and read their facial features and start to use that to help them to open up, to talk to you. When someone learns to cut hair, totally different thing. What do? They study it and they learn everything. A good hairdresser, knows everything there is to know about hair. Colour, cut, conditioning, how to work in a salon, all of that stuff. A bad hairdresser, and they are out there, maybe doesn't have natural talent and certainly hasn't done anything about the fact they don't have natural talent to hone their skills. And, I just think the more you can be aware of what makes a good reading, and what makes a good reading is a really good, strong beginning that settles your client in, having a process that you stick to, that you described really briefly in the beginning, and then rounding the reading out with a nice conclusion and a warning. If you're going to do a reading for 15, 20 minutes, 5 minutes before, we're coming to the end of our reading now. The things we've talked about are, your takeaways are. So the person stands up feeling like, oh, I know what I'm doing now. So it was very, it was bad. It was bad. And I think my biggest takeaway when I thought about why this reading was really bad was they talked about themselves. And they didn't use the cards. He had a pack of tarot cards there. I had no idea if they were Waite Smith. And I looked at the cards and he hadn't sort of told me how it was going to work. And he just said, I just use them to get my messages, which is fine. But he didn't tell me that in the beginning. It was messy. And that's the other reason. Talked about himself, and it was a messy reading. And at the end of the day, especially if you're going to read in person, you want people looking for you. So there used to be an expo out at Frankston called the Frankston Psychic Expo. And I used to go there every year with a girlfriend until COVID hit, and I don't think they do the Frankston Psychic Expo anymore. Have to look for it. But there was a gorgeous reader there by the name of Dorsky, and she had a real... Dorsky, if you're listening, absolutely brilliant. I think she was a natural, but she just had this process of the way she read. It was always the same. I knew what to expect. She set up the reading beautifully. The first thing she would say is, now, what we're going to do is we're going to pull an oracle card to set the tone of the reading. And then I'm going to read the tarot for you. And then at the end, you can ask me some questions. And she'd say that every time. So I'd sit down. First thing she'd do is sweep out the oracle cards. I'd pull out an oracle card. She'd look at it. I'd look at it. She'd say, and she'd read from that. Then she'd read the tarot, and she was just amazing. She used to do this spread. It looked like Celtic Cross, but it was actually, I asked her about it, and she said, oh no, it's mine. I just do my thing. And to me, it looked like Celtic Cross. So there you go. And then at the end, she would round the reading out so beautifully that I would get up and go, yeah, I know what I'm doing now. And I wouldn't even feel like I needed to see anybody else for the whole time I was there. And I had a girlfriend who'd sit beside me, and she'd say every time, because she knows my life and she knows me inside out, and she just me and go, she's so accurate. Oh my goodness, she's so accurate. And yes, so there, you know, but part of that is that she gave herself a process that I could follow along with. So be really mindful of that. Get yourself, and it takes time to develop it. But the most important thing you want, I guess why I tell that story, is every time I go to Frankston Psychic Expo, I'd look for her. And so it was effortless. I would literally run into that expo and I would have to book with her straight away because her whole day would be full and I'd be waiting. If I delayed and went for a little walk and then said, oh yeah, we'll see Dorsky now, couldn't get in to see her. So that's what you want. And in my teaching, that's what I'm aiming to get you to. As you listen to me, as you learn the cards, as you connect, and I think we need some, I'm starting to feel like we need some tutorial groups. So I might set that up again tonight and put that out on my newsletter. So if you haven't joined my newsletter, connect with yourdeck.com/newsletter and tell me about the bad readings you've had in the comments. I'd love to hear about them. And maybe you might like to come along to my tutorial groups and have a chat about it. So join my newsletter list so you get the invite and you don't miss out because they'll be free. There'll be free tutorial groups where you'll be able to sit with me and ask questions, not reading questions about your process of reading the tarot, whether you're reading professionally or you're reading for friends, to really get that process nice and tight and well organized. Take care, everybody, and I will see you in the next video. And hopefully I'll still be sitting in front of my backdrop with lights. We'll just see. And I really need to get my head around starting my lifestyle channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.